Most animated films are for kids, there is no denying that. But the best animated films are both for kids and adults. Regardless of how old you are, there are some moments in these films that will cause both parties to shed a tear, or several tears for that matter. These movies do not shy away from death, as it is a natural part of life that we must face at some point or another. However, that doesn't make it any easier. So today we're going to go over the top 10 saddest deaths in animated films, and here to help me out is my good friend Wolfkaosaun.
Happy to be here, Joey, but it's pronounced Wolfkaosaun.
Gesundheit. Anyway, let's begin with number 10, which is the most recent entry on our list. Number 10. On one hand, Moana is a very formulaic and kind of predictable Disney film. But hey, we still love it, right, Wolf?
Yeah, it's an enjoyable movie with a pretty great and funny grandma, too.
Of course, we're talking about Grandma Tala, who's the only person on the island that understands Moana's desire to go out to sea. She mentions earlier in the film that when she dies, she wants her spirit to take the form of a manta ray. Later on, as the island becomes victim to a dark famine, her grandma suddenly takes ill, and Moana goes to see her on her deathbed. With her last few breaths, she tells Moana to go find the demigod Maui to save the island, in spite of her father's wishes. While we never see her die, we know what happens as Moana takes a raft out to the ocean, looking back at the island to see the lights go out. Lo and behold, a manta ray emerges. No, not that manta ray. Rather, the spirit of Grandma Tala. I'll be honest, this connection went over my head when I saw it in theaters, but it is a beautiful way to depict the passing of a character. That said, it's only number 10 on our list because Moana gets to see her again in the form of a force ghost. Get used to this, kids. This won't be the last time we see a ghost in this video. Number 9. Who could forget about E.B. White's classic book and film adaptation, Charlotte's Web? We could forget about the sequel though, we don't talk about that. After being sent to a neighboring farm to be slaughtered, Wilbur the pig befriends a spider named Charlotte, played by the late and great Debbie Reynolds. Charlotte reveals to Wilbur that she has a plan to save his bacon, by webbing in the words, "some pig," above his pen. Some pig, huh? That could mean a lot of things, but this caused a lot of commotion around the community. The recognition kept growing as Charlotte kept spinning different words above Wilbur's pen, enough so that the farmer entered him into the county fair. Once the fair and celebration was over, Charlotte tells Wilbur that she isn't coming home, originally stating she was too tired to make it back down to the crate to go home. Charlotte says that his success was to a small degree her success, and that he will now live a long life free from the fears of being killed. She then begins to sing a very touching song about how we are all a part of life's eternal ride and it will keep going on without us.
How very special are we for just a moment to be part of life's eternal ride.
Number 8. Now let's bring it over to the oldest film we have on the list.
You know, I think I heard somewhere that this is Elon Musk's favorite movie.
What is that actually happened?
Anyway, Bambi was made in 1942, and you know where this is going. On a cold winter's day, Bambi and his mom go out searching for a nice patch of grass to eat. But then Mother hears the sound of hunters, something unbeknownst to Bambi, and she just tells him to run. We see both of them running with Bambi up front, and then we hear the sound of a gunshot, with Bambi's mother nowhere in sight. Still, Bambi thinks that his mom is running back to the shelter with him. The truth is far more sad. Mother! As Bambi shouts and looks for his mother, all we see is the silent landscape of the forest, with somber vocals playing in the background. Instead of finding his mother, Bambi meets the prince of the forest with grim news.
Your mother can't be with you anymore.
Silence is an effective tool for storytelling, and the scene of Bambi's mother's death helps prove that.
Scenes like this prove that Chandler was the absolute worst.
Bambi is a cartoon.
You didn't cry when Bambi's mother died?
Yes, it was very sad when the guy stopped drawing the deer.
Number 7. Wolfie, let me ask you this. What does every superhero movie have in common?
Carbon fiber underwear.
Okay, what else do they have in common?
Oh. Dead family members.
And bingo was his name-o.
And that brings us to Big Hero 6. If you watched this movie before watching the trailers, you would not have seen the death of Hiro Hamada's older brother Tadashi coming. It's such an impactful death as it not only shows the character that Tadashi had, but it's a motivation for those around him to keep his spirit alive. Tadashi gave his life to save someone else. You see, he learns that his mentor and father figure Callahan is stuck inside of a burning school and immediately wants to go rescue him. His younger brother Hiro tries to stop him, however he reluctantly lets Tadashi go attempt a rescue, only to watch in horror as soon after another explosion happens, killing Tadashi. The death becomes even more heartbreaking as the movie goes on, witnessing someone go through grief and then finding out why the burning school happened. It's such an extremely touching movie, and this death was a monumental driving force for Hiro becoming, well, a hero. If you haven't seen this movie, I suggest you do so. Personally, it's one of my top 3 Disney movies of all time.
Number 6. If you have a perfectly rational fear of the ocean, then Finding Nemo kind of doubles as a horror movie, especially when they go down in that dark trench. Ugh. But this doesn't hold a candle to the beginning of the movie, where Marlin and his wife Coral are figuring out what to name their thousands of kids.
I like Nemo.
Nemo? Well, we'll name one Nemo, but I'd like most of them to be Marlin Jr.
Then they start having a little fun until everything goes quiet, and a deadly barracuda is waiting in the distance to attack. I didn't even know what a barracuda was when I first watched this movie, and I wish I never found out. Coral's motherly instincts kick in, and she goes down to protect her eggs. Marlin gets knocked out trying to fight the barracuda and wakes up to the horror of finding his wife and the eggs gone. All but one little egg. And just when you think you weren't going to cry, guess what Marlin decides to name him?
Nemo.
This tragedy shaped Marlin into being afraid of the ocean, but as we know, he overcame it to save his only son. And after watching this movie, I could never listen to the song Barracuda the same way again.
Ooh, Barracuda!
Number 5.
Man, there's a lot of Disney movies on this list. Let's shake it up a bit.
I've had quite a few people recently tell me that my voice reminds them of a character from How to Train Your Dragon, that being Hiccup. Honestly, I adore this trilogy. I could gush about it for hours. There's some extremely emotional moments within this franchise. Hiccup's father, Stoic the Vast, had a less than stellar relationship with his son and even worse, dragons. However, throughout the first 2 movies, Stoic changes his ways of thinking and betters himself. And that's why his ending is so tragic. Stoic reunites with his long-lost wife in the second film, and it seems like a happy ending awaits for this family after a battle is to take place, but sadly that's not the case. Toothless ends up becoming hypnotically controlled by this dragon called the Bewilderbeast. Under its influence, Toothless is ordered to kill Hiccup. As he shoots a plasma blast, Hiccup is pushed out of the way by his father Stoic, thus killing him. Then the Bewilderbeast relinquishes control over Toothless, letting him see what he's done, but Toothless doesn't know. It's such a twist that no one expected, and it's so heartbreaking. As Stoic finally trusted dragons, a dragon is the one that took his life. Albeit the dragon was under the control of another, it's still emotional as Hiccup pushes away Toothless during these moments. It hurts hard. Thankfully, however, this doesn't waver Hiccup's character. If anything, it was a push for him to become the man he was meant to be. Which is comforting, as it shows that Stoic's sacrifice made an impact on the future generation for both his village and dragons alike.
Number 4. We're gonna keep this non-Disney streak going, with by far the best film from Warner Bros. Animation.
You're talking about Osmosis Jones, aren't you?
Can you not? Anyway, I'm obviously referring to The Iron Giant, the story about the misadventures of a boy and his gigantic mechanical friend set in the United States during the Cold War era, where everyone was paranoid about the Russians. When the US Army finally discovers the Iron Giant, they go full offensive and try to kill it despite it not being a threat. A nuclear missile strike is ordered on the giant right in the middle of civilian territory.
It appears that fear was going to cost thousands of lives, but the Iron Giant does something incredible. Knowing that destruction and death will happen, he chooses to sacrifice himself to save others. There were people that wanted him dead, that attacked him, but because of the compassion of one kid, it moved a giant. The Iron Giant then flies into the sky to give his life for everyone. He remembers the words his only friend gave him. You are who you choose to be. In his last moments, he knows who he wants to be. With a smile on his face, he accepts his fate and takes out the missile by sacrificing himself. It's such an iconic moment.
Number 3. For this next one, I'm going to start playing this song.
How dare you? How dare you put water in my eyes? How dare you?
Yeah, you can't talk about animated film deaths without bringing up the first 10 minutes of Up. Pixar are the masters of telling little stories, as indicated by their short films like Bow, and for Up, they decided to bring in the feels with no hesitation. We see Carl Fredricksen as a reserved boy when he meets his friend Ellie, a rambunctious and adventurous girl. Then in the next few minutes, we see them grow up together, fall in love, get married, buy a house, try and fail to start a family, all the while saving up for a trip to South America. These plans don't come to fruition until they reach an old age, and just when Carl buys the tickets, Ellie falls ill and very tragically passes away. This scene is of course iconic for setting the tone of this amazing film, and it stays with us for the entirety of it. It allows us to feel sympathy for Carl, who, without knowing what he's been through, we would just see as a grumpy old man. It reminds us that we can't judge a book by its cover. Every person we come across has a story that's shaped them into who they are. Simply put, this is why Up is one of the greatest Pixar films ever made. Number 2. A lot of you are going to hate me for this, but coming in at number 2 is Mufasa.
Number 2? Joey, how dare you? This is the death scene that everybody talks about.
Exactly. And I hate popular things. The Lion King is a tale of power, betrayal, and a way to get around copyright laws. That said, every 90s kid will remember this movie for one thing: the tragic murder of King Mufasa by his own brother, Scar. Throughout the movie, we see Mufasa as a strict but fair father figure, despite his future responsibility as a king. A responsibility that Simba looks forward to a little too much.
Oh, I just can't wait to be king.
However, Mufasa's brother Scar has other intentions, and sets up a plan to kill Mufasa by trapping Simba within a stampede of wildebeests. Simba gets saved by Mufasa, and Scar has the opportunity to save his brother, but then he reveals his true intentions.
Long live the king.
Simba then goes down to see his dad and just play the scene.
Dad? Dad, come on. You gotta get up. Dad, we gotta go home.
And what's worse is that Simba was blamed for the whole thing by Scar. He truly feels the guilt of his father's death. But lo and behold, Force Ghost, Mufasa comes in to tell him to...
Remember who you are. You are my son, and the one true king.
And then he goes back to Pride Rock to defeat Scar and his minions of hyenas. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be ready to watch this scene play out in theaters during the live-action remake.
Well, technically it's not live action since all the animals are CGI.
You know what? You're right. Number 1.
Okay, Joey, since you know Mufasa wasn't number 1, then which one is number 1?
And I will answer that question with another question. Have I told you the way to the Great Valley?
Oh god.
Personally, I think this scene is at least twice as sad as the death of Mufasa. In The Land Before Time, we see Littlefoot and his friend Sarah's dangerous encounter with a sharp-toothed dinosaur, and just after his mom saves them from a fall, a massive earthquake happens which shifts the land drastically. After that natural disaster, the scene takes a dramatic shift. It's dark, it's cold, and Littlefoot is looking for his mother. Yes, this scene plays out a lot like Mufasa's death, but this time, Littlefoot finds his mother alive and barely clinging to life. With her last words, she asks Littlefoot if he knows the way to the Great Valley, and that he must make the journey there alone, except not without her.
I'll be with you, even if you can't see me.
In spite of their similarities, I feel that this scene was executed better than Mufasa's in The Lion King. Both are great scenes, but in The Land Before Time, the music is perfectly paced, rest in peace James Horner, the acting is superb, and the dialogue between a son and his dying mother is gut-wrenching. Later on, she kind of visits him as a ghost, and it's somehow even sadder thanks to the gorgeous animation and music. Don Bluth, how did you and your team do it?
This death, oh boy. I remember my mom telling me about this death and how it was the first time she ever cried to a movie. Not only did she fight for her son, but she fought to leave him one final message. It just punches you right in the feels and leaves such a lasting impression. I'm not gonna lie, after rewatching this clip, I had to give my mom a call. It's that moving.
And the moral of this story is that existence is pain, kids, so learn it now or you're in for a rough life.
Very positive message there, Joseph.
How dare you use my first name? Anyway, Wolfkaosaun, where can we find you?
I have a channel called Wolfkaosaun where Joey actually took part of another top 10 on the top 10 saddest gaming deaths because we want to cry more. I mainly dabble in comedic video game reviews, but sometimes they're not too funny. I'm also on Twitter if you want to follow me and just talk to me about random stuff or just be like, hey, I remember you. Block. Thank you for having me on here. I actually really enjoyed this experience, even though it was really sad and I did kind of cry at some moments. But still, I'm very thankful for this. I'm also extremely sad because I watched every single death in a row while I recorded my lines, and I'm pretty emotional right now. Yeah.
Awesome. And you can find me over there crying.